Hi everyone. So in this video, we'll be looking at some assumptions that we make for the competitive market. In some ways that this perfectly competitive market isn't really 100%, uh, it's not really realistic. And as you go through, so in this video, you'll notice I'm using a different format. If you think about it, just let me know which ones works better for videos for you, whether it be the slides that we have in class or taking our guided notes and putting it on. Um, I'm going to try them both, and then these first rounds of videos, I'm just going to kind of go with what I kind of like, what's easier on my end. But as you go through and you look through them, if the other way works better, let me know. If this way works better, let me know. I'm trying them both out just to see which one works better and which one is more preferred among y'all. So throughout this chapter, we're talking about this competitive market, and we kind of notice three assumptions that we're making. Right. And the first is that all of our firms, both existing and potential, are going to have identical costs. Right. So whether I'm Walmart, Target, Fairway, Hy-Vee, wherever I am, whatever my goods are the exact same costs. And I don't have to pay. I'm no better than anybody else at producing a good. Nobody else is better than me at producing a good. Right. It's kind of the first assumption we make. The second one is that our firm's costs don't change as other firms enter or exit the market. So with this assumption, this is just an assumption we make. We're not necessarily saying it's realistic or not, but we're just saying, hey, as more firms enter in the model that we talked about so far, our costs stay exactly the same. And then the third thing that we see is that in the short run, the number of firms is relatively fixed, whereas in the long run, it's more variable. And if we think about this if we think about it on a day-to-day basis, right? Whatever restaurants are in town, between today, tomorrow, next week, probably even 2 months from now, in this short run window, we can tell, hey, everything's pretty much going to be there. However, in the long run, things might change more. Right? If you go away for 1 month and you came back, for the most part, everything's going to be the same. But if you went 10 years away from Boone or Carroll and came back, right, things might be very, very different, right? So kind of three assumptions we make. And what we're going to go through is we're going to go through and see how realistic these assumptions are. But first, kind of look at we're going to establish a long-run equilibrium condition. And for this one, if we think about it, right, if we see that existing firms are earning a positive profit, what we can expect to happen is that more firms will actually enter that market. Right, and the reason for this, I kind of talked about, you see someone on your campus selling water bottles for $10 a bottle, right? You can go in and you know that you can go and sell waters for $1 a bottle and make a profit. So if the market price is $10, you're going to say, hey, I want Inland's market and I want to enter that market. However, if our existing firms are actually experiencing a loss, we'll see that firms are going to leave the market. Right? And surely nobody's going to enter. So if you come to campus one day and you see 100 people selling waters for a penny a piece, in this case, you're certainly not going to want to get on that market. And as these individual firms keep losing money and that price is less than average total cost, they're actually going to go ahead and leave that market. So with this, we're going to say that in the long run, our firms are going to earn zero economic profit. And this zero economic profit, again, is because if we have that positive profit, more firms enter. And in the real world, that's going to kind of increase our supply and bring that price down. However, if you're losing a loss, firms leave the market. In the real world, that cuts our supply and brings the price up some. Right? And what we're going to see this zero economic profit actually happen is when the price is going to be equal to the minimum average total cost. And the reason for this, again, if the price is above the average total cost, then, so if the price is above average total cost, then our firms enter and bring the price down. However, if the price is less than the average total cost, then our firms will leave and the price will go up. So the reason we'll be at this minimum average total cost is because we set our profit maximization when price is also equal to our marginal revenue. And when our marginal revenue intersects the average total cost curve, or I should say that marginal revenue will intersect the average total cost at the minimum average total cost. And the reason for this, so graphically what this will look like is, right, we'll have our marginal revenue, something like that, and our average total cost curve will, wherever we want, they're going to intersect is where that will minimize. And the reason for this, if we think about it, so if, and suppose you're talking about your grades and say a test. So if currently you have an 80 in the class, but then you get a 20 on an exam, that's going to lower your test score. However, if you have, say, a 60 in the class, but then you get an 80 on an exam, that's going to raise your test score. Right, so the average total cost is going to follow that marginal revenue, that marginal cost. Excuse me, all this should have been marginal cost. A little bit my bad, but all right. So we have marginal cost. That average total cost is going to follow it, again, because if the last unit costs more than the average total cost, it'll raise that average total cost. If the last unit made costs less than the average total cost, it'll bring down that marginal cost. Just like an exam or a grade can affect your, just like an exam or assignment might affect your final grade in the class. The last assignment, if it's above your average, it'll raise your average score, but if it's below your average, it will lower your average score. Right. So what we'll see, so we mentioned here that our firms are earning zero economic profit. So we have this question, why are we going to bother staying in business? So a couple things we're going to see, or the big reason why, is this zero is referring to our economic profit, which is our revenue minus our total costs. Two things that includes is the opportunity cost of the owner. So the owner has weighed in all of their options when they do this. And we also pay our owner's salary, right? So if you own a business, you're supposed to, your pay will come from that business and the business pays you. And as far as taxes go, you would report that as income on your income tax. So what we'll see happen is, since our economic profit is our revenue minus our total costs, and since that is equal to zero, our accounting profit will be positive. And remember, this accounting profit is going to be what we report to the IRS. Right, that's what we report to the IRS, and it's also it's more or less what our books say. Right. And that owner's salary is included in the accounting profit. It's just I just have it up here just to show, hey, it's also including that. So as an owner, you are getting paid, and you do get to benefit from your business. So kind of the last assumption or last thing we want to note in this chapter is that our long run supply curve, we have this question, in the long run, is the supply curve upward sloping? So this is going to be horizontal if these two assumptions from above hold. So if one, firms face identical costs, And two, costs don't remain constant as firms enter or exit a market. Right. So our long run supply curve is horizontal if these two are true. What we're going to go through and see is that neither of them are really true, to show that the long run supply curve should in fact be upward sloping. Right. So first thing we want to note is that firms have different costs, and as our prices rise, we'll see that our firms with lower costs will actually enter the market before those with the higher costs. And what we're seeing here is that, um, right, if right now you are considering going to being an accounting major and suppose the starting salary is 30,000, if you are a math major, I suppose we're comparing a math major and an English major. If the salary for an accountant went from 40 to 50,000, the math major is more likely to have they're more likely to be better at accounting than the English major, because oftentimes your English majors are there to avoid math if possible. And if you are an English major, not I don't mean anything by that, but uh, stereotypically, a math major would be better than numbers than an English major. So if that salary went from 40 to 50,000, we would expect the math major to switch over to accounting before an English major. However, what we'll see happen though is as this price jumps up more and more and more, it's going to become more worthwhile for your firms with higher costs to enter the market. So if that salary went from, so we just said it went from 40 to 50, right? The person who might be good at accounting switches over with that little price jump. Now, if the price increased to say something silly like $300,000 a year, in this case, that English major, even though they don't like math, even though they don't want to work with numbers, might go ahead and make that switch over just because that price for accountants has become so high. Right. So what we see happen is, right, different people have different skill sets, different firms can produce at different costs. So when we're at our market price, the last firm that entered, this marginal firm, is going to have their profit equal to zero. And again, that's their economic profit. Right. So in the case of our math major switching to accounting, maybe that 50,000, if they're the marginal firm, right, then they just started to become better off by switching over or coming into the business. However, what we'll see happen is these low-cost firms will have their profit will actually be positive profit, right? So if you were already an accounting major when the wage was 40,000 and you're good at it, right, that cost, you were already at the 0 point profit point. So as that price increases, your profits will grow. The second assumption that we said we have is that our costs have to remain constant our costs stay the same as firms enter or leave the market. In the real world, what we actually see is our costs will actually rise as firms enter the market. And the reason for this comes from supply and demand. So for any input, our supplies are actually going to be limited. So when a new firm enters a market, the demand will increase for our limited supplies or for our inputs. So if we all started to go into farming, the demand for corn seed would increase. Whereas if everybody left farming, the demand for corn seed would decrease. So when this price increases, right, what we have happen, we just come back to price and quantity, demand and supply. If a bunch of new firms enter, that's going to shift our demand curve to the right, which puts us to this new demand. And we see our prices went from down here on up. And what we're going to see this do is it's going to increase the costs for all firms. So if right now I decide I'm gonna, and granted I'm a very small player, but if we all decided we're gonna open up farms and we're gonna use our land for farming now, and suppose we all have a decent amount of land, when we all get into farming, we all want corn seed, we all want workers to help us out some, we all need fertilizer, everything that any farmer needs, we all have to have now. And because of that, it's going to increase the demand for every input, and everybody will have to pay more. So that's the end of this chapter. If you're looking through, if you need anything, as always, feel free to let me know. And again, when you get the chance, just let me know which format's better. This one where I have the document up already, or the other format where we're going through the slides. Whichever works better for you, I'd like to know, because it helps me make sure that I'm delivering content in the best way possible. Have a good day, and if you need anything, as always, feel free to let me know.